Hello. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Hello from Frankfurt.
Okay.
Hello. Now I welcome the third panel and the third moderator, Vincent Brinkman, and I will leave you the room, and thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for organizing this beautiful Congress. I already learned a lot. And yeah, I have the honor to present the three or even more speakers of this first panel of the afternoon. And I would like to present Alessandro Di Ludovico. He will be first, if I understand well, who is presenting together with Sergio Camis.
Yes.
Alessandro is working in charge of Museo Barocco in Rome, a very beautiful place, a collection which had been brought together by Pollack, an archaeologist and art dealer, which we all owe quite a lot. He is archaeologist, art historian, and he is specialized, if I understood well, in Near Eastern civilizations.
Yes.
He did excavations in Syria, Levante, Oman, and he is focusing on the methodology of quantitative analysis, so statistics and clusters and so forth. But he is even linking those aspects to question of perceptions and communications. In this area and field, he published on cyber research and a publication called Ancient World Goes Digital. We are very happy to hear your presentation now on different stones, the weight of colors in ancient Near Eastern glyptics. So the screen is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And hi to everybody. I thank the organizers of this beautiful meeting first. And now I will try to share my screen and see if it works. So I think
on the bottom of Zoom
this
share
should be
screen.
Yes, share screen, but
and then you choose your presentation. It needs to be open.
Yes, it is open, but I'm not sure it happens in the list. I don't see it in the list. I don't know why, because this is not this one. Sorry, I try to reopen it. I try to reopen it now. Yeah. Sorry, I don't know why I don't find it. I think it's this one. Yes. Sorry, I'm very sorry. Can you see it?
It's going to show up. Yes, we can see it.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay.
Now you
Thank
need
you.
to put it in presenters mode, presentation mode. Sorry, because it's in.
It is now in presentation mode.
It is on. We are seeing the list of slides on the.
So.
Anyway, you can present it like this if you.
Yes. Because I now it should be in presentation mode. Do you look it like that?
Not yet, still the same.
Okay, let's try.
We see the slides on the left-hand side. Also. So we see the main slide on. Yes. Now it's fine. If it is okay for you.
For me, it's okay. I see the full presentation mode. Okay. Okay. Sorry for this little technical issue.
We have several. Don't worry. Okay.
It happens. Okay. What we are talking about, I've been presented my colleague. My colleague and friend Sergio Camis is not here. He's abroad in America for a research stay, and his expertise is rather in statistics. We have worked for a long time, and so the statistical part of this paper belongs to him, and of course all the statistical processing. Now we are talking about cylinder seals. I don't know if everybody in this Congress is aware of what cylinder seals are, so I will briefly remember or explain what they are. Cylinder seals are little artifacts, mostly made of stones. In some cases, they were made even in clay, terracotta, or bones. Or even in metal, but mostly they were made of stones, and they developed in the early historic age, in the ancient Near East. Probably their first appearance, their first use was in the, I have written number 1 in this area, so in the land of Sumer and in Susiana, so in today's southern Iraq and southwestern Iran. It is an interesting artifact because a cylinder seal, as we will see, is bound to a number of cultural features, behaviors, and most of all, it is being used with a certain intensity since the beginning of the historical period. It seems that the history of cylinder seal is strictly the history and the development of cylinder seal is strictly bound, related to the use of writing, at least in the first, in its first 2 millennia of use. As you can see, as you probably know, cylinder seals were used were produced and used for systematically for almost 3 millennia. I have simplified here things. I am well aware that the first examples of cylinder seals appeared in the prehistoric period, much before the fourth millennium BCE, but its systematic use in the administration was beginning, actually, according to what we know so far, around in the late Chalcolithic period, so around 3,500 years before Christ. So here in this slide, I have placed a map where I show in a synthetic and very approximative way how the cylinder seal, the use of cylinder seals spread in the Near and Middle East. So we see from the Indus Valley.
We are not seeing the map. We are still seeing the first slide.
Sorry, can you see the slides go further?
No.
Forward? No.
No.
I have no idea.
Now yes.
Now yes. When I closed it. So this way.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I'm sorry. I was talking having this map, this slide before me. So the map is here. You can see number 1, number 2, number 3. It is just an approximative description, a very, very quick and approximative description of how the cylinder seal use in administration spread from southern Mesopotamia and Susiana, today's Khuzestan here, to a much wider area, including Gulf, the Persian-Arabic Gulf, the Indus Valley, a large part of today's Iran, and later even, of course, Syria and Palestine, and later even Anatolia, Egypt, and a part of the Hellenic world. I have placed here some images of cylinder seals just to show how different they can look like. And there is a reason for this. I will say this later. Now, the first administrative uses of cylinder seals in the late prehistoric period or early historic period is such that they were used to seal containers like vessels or bags, big bags, or storerooms. They were used to seal the systems which were used to lock the storerooms, which were very many different systems. Usually, the way it was used, a lump of wet clay was placed on the ropes which sealed a container, or on the lock of a door, and on that lump of clay the seal was rolled so that the impression which had been carved in a negative carving on the side of the cylinder could appear as a positive. And so this was the guarantee that the container or the storeroom had not been violated. And on the other hand, when the administration needed to open a storeroom or a container, they could keep the so-called cretule, so the little lumps of clay, in order to keep the account of the times the goods were had been taken from the storerooms or containers. Cylinder seals, as I said before, were bound to the origins of writing. For example, here we see, this was an experiment many years ago of a research team. We can see here a bulla containing tokens, the so-called tokens, which were little objects made of stone or clay, baked clay usually, and they were the symbols of some goods, of a certain amount, of a certain type of goods. In this bulle, so these bulle were used just like envelopes by the administration, and to certify that the bulle was had not been violated or its content changed, the outer side of the bulla was impressed with cylinder seal rollings. Then the bulla became a flat object, a tablet, with the impression on the side, on one side of the tablet, of the cylinder seal and the tokens, so to communicate. And that's the beginning of writing. What we see here, they are the earliest administrative tablets with numerical, basically numerical information, quantitative information. Here below, we see 1,000 years later, around 2050 before Christ, examples of administrative tablets of the Ur-3 age. Using, of course, the cuneiform writing derived from this type of marks and the other ones, and still using the cylinder seal to give a guarantee, like a stamp, to certify the authenticity of the message in the administration. Further examples here, later tablets and labels, and here even an example of a cylinder seal rolled on the wet, not yet baked terracotta vessel. Before cooking, of course. But cylinder seal was not just a tool for administration to certify the authenticity of something or the transparency of some economic transaction. Cylinder seals in Mesopotamia and in the ancient Near East, first in Mesopotamia and then in the whole, we can say, ancient Near East, was also an ornament, an amulet, and had a specific use also as an ornament. So in the daily life, normally the people were looking at cylinder seals as things which were part of jewelry. These are bracelets here, for example, with cylinder seals placed in the middle. The cylinder seal had usually an axial perforation running in the middle of it. In some cases, it was hanging by the ornaments of garments, and so on. I will not discuss further this topic, but it's important that to remember that cylinder seals were how to say, they were in contact with the body of the people who owned them, and other people were looking at cylinder seals as a cylinder, mostly having shapes and carved figures or motifs on its side, but as an object, having a cylindrical physicalness. I say this again because usually, as you can see here on the right, the traditional way, we have here two publications, 1909, 2004. The traditional way of publishing cylinder seals is a modern contemporary laboratory impression made in the museums of the seal, and only the impression, or almost only the impression, is shown, because the impression, of course, shows the best way the iconographic apparatus of the seal, of the cylinder. But this is just a part of the information you can take from the cylinder. For example, the type of stone, the color of stone, the weight, the dimensions. The dimensions are usually communicated in catalogs, but from these images, we lose a lot of information. So I still show here some impressions here in the top right, produced in order to show in the museums the iconographical apparatus of those seals, and further examples of seals, just to show how different they can be. Some of them are stamp seals here, actually, but now we are talking only of cylinder seals. So what we were thinking to do to prepare this work, this research, is how can we capture the ancient seals' color? How can we capture them, the colors of those stones, in order to investigate them? So using some I will not say objective, but at least consistent strategy, a consistent procedure to capture the colors and compare the colors of the stones, or compare those seals according to their colors, to see if the stones, beside the availability of raw materials, besides how much easy was to work a stone in the shape of a cylinder seal, how they were chosen and used, considering that the stones were normally seen, observed by the people who used those seals, and not their abstract projection on a lump of clay. So we pay attention to also to the perceptive sensitivity of ancient peoples, which cannot be reconstructed because of the obvious distances and differences in culture, in historical period, in structuring of perception, and in the use of communication tools. There are too many differences, and of course, this is a big issue. But I have here a but we can look for a procedure which gives us an idea of relative distances and proximities, at least. And thus we can try to detect the strong or weak degrees of similarities among specimens. Of course, the consistency in collecting data is fundamental. So, in short, we used two, we can say, one tool and one open archive. The open archive is the one of the project SIANE SESPOA, which is an international project in which few years ago, I think it was about 6-7 years ago, this international team, me and Sergio Camitz and I, we are not part of this team. We know them, but we did not cooperate with them. We just used what they produced. They produced through the laser scanner, but with a structural light scanning, they produced a huge archive of representation of cylinder seals, which could be, how can we say, which could be comparable, because they used consistently always the same tools with the same parameters, with the same settings, and so they produced quite a large number of images that we decided to use for our research, and we thank them, of course. These are the websites of those projects, SIANE and SESPOA. And these are this is a publication, of course, one of the first publications related to this project, and some examples of what they produced with this project, these images. The other tool we used was DevPicker, this website, which allows to extract the RGB values of colors, average RGB color of an image, whatever image, and the dominant color in that image. So we recorded the dominant color and the average color for each seal. What do they record? What did they record in SIANE? They recorded the complete surface of the cylinder where the images are carved, and then they developed it in a virtual rolling as if they had peeled the stone and then extended on a flat plane the representation, what is carved on the side of the cylinder. So these are the type of images we used. The main part of this slide shows just a comparison, the original publication of those seals on modern impressions, and a digital publication of the same seals with the method developed by the SESPOA team. So our data set was made of 639 records, and for each record, 9 features were recorded. The 9 features were the dominant and the average color of the stones, so the RGB components, 6 features, and then the primary subject, the secondary subject depicted on the cylinder seal, and the historical period this cylinder seal belonged. So the method, the statistical method we used was the principal component analysis. We have here just 2 examples, one Akkadian seal and one Old Assyrian seal with the dominant and average color each, and main and secondary theme. Actually, the secondary subject is not easy to detect for all seals, and in most seals it's absent. There is just one subject which can be outlined. So the investigation to the secondary theme was much more limited. These are the results of a first. This is just the first preliminary investigation with the principal component analysis, the PCA. we obtained 3 axes. The first axis is dimension 1. It's called here dimension 1. It shows more or less the degree of darkness of the color of the stone. So on the negative side, darker stone. On the positive side, lighter stones, lighter colors. Colors. The second axis is rather related to the brightness of the stones, of the color of these colors, and the third axis has rather to do with the prevalent component in the RGB color, blue or red component. We will see it very soon. These are the results. Sorry, below it's not really readable, but this is the distribution of each specimen according to the 3 axes taken 2 by 2. 1 and 2 on the left, 2 and 3 on the right. And this is what happened when we projected on that scheme the features, the features, meaning with this word, the historical periods, the subjects depicted on the seals, and the secondary subjects. We will see them better here. This is just one example. You see the arrows, the golden arrows, they connect the historical periods of 3rd millennium from the late Uruk period, so from the late, actually, 4th millennium, the earliest cylinder seals, to Jemdet Nas, the following period, and so on. As you can see, the stones seem to be quite opaque in the beginning, and they tend to become so opaque in the sense dull, and they tend to become clearer in color in the following periods, and then coming back to rather bright and a bit darker colors in the end of 3rd millennium. Here we have also the early 2nd millennium, quite homogeneous, as we will see. This is a projection, the same projection, but on the 3rd and 2nd axis, meaning that from a relatively prevalence of the red component, we go slowly through the centuries to a preeminence of the blue component in these digital images of the seals. For the late bronze, the scheme is this. The situation is less. Sorry, I come back to the former one, because these periods, they are all refer to Mesopotamian production, for which we have a lot of specimens. In this case, for the late Bronze Age, we have rather a regional differentiation of the seals. The Mitanni in the northern Mesopotamia, they show rather dark but tendentially bright stones. The seals excavated in Cyprus of the late Bronze Age, they are rather dark and not much bright, but with a preeminence of the blue component. Similar is the case of Egypt, but they have much lighter colors, and even more the Kassite production, so the southern Mesopotamian one. In the 1st millennium, there is a clear distinction between the Neo-Assyrian production and the southern Mesopotamian one, the Persian seals, which are much later and much lighter and brilliant. And then the Hellenistic production is quite bright, quite light in color, and with a strong preeminence of the blue component. Sorry, I see it's quite late, so I just show here a graph, a synthesis of the dominant and average colors for all periods. Of course, the order of these periods is chronological from left to right. We can see what I said before, the Middle Bronze Age in Mesopotamia and even in Syria, here in the middle. It shows a great homogeneity in the use in the colors of the stones used for the seals. As for the subject, I will say it briefly here. The investigation, the PCA, was a little bit more complicated. So I thought the most trustable and understandable results were these two I show here, those having to do with the theme of the presentation scene, which are quite dark stones, not much bright, but not dull, with a slight preeminence of the blue component. On the contrary, the theme of we called it FFG, it means flora, fauna, and geometric designs. It's a type of a category of motifs which is very frequent on early historic seals. It's just compositions of animals or vegetables or geometric motifs in a very, geometrical way. It's very geometrical.
Alessandro, I hate to interrupt you, but time is running out.
Okay. Just to see how they oppose. Now, to conclude, I'm concluding. For the next months, we plan to enlarge the data set and to use different statistical methods to investigate further questions. And we would like to make comparisons between what we observed with these methods and what has so far been understood of the perception and symbolism of colors by ancient Near Eastern cultures. And so there is still a lot, in short, there is still a lot to. We hope we can also enlarge the data set, both for the records and the features we want to record about them. So I thank you very much, and sorry for these technical issues. Yeah, thank you for your attention.
Alessandro, thank you very much indeed. This is thrilling, and I think the discussion will come back to what you explained to us. I have to apologize because I have to leave earlier than planned because I didn't understand well the time lapse, the time difference in between Central Europe and Portugal, and I have a train to catch. So sorry for this. We are very happy to have on the screen Elisabetta Koller, which is Assistant Professor of Arts and Humanities of the Lisbon University. She teaches especially Asian studies. She did her PhD in Lisbon at the university. She did a master degree, and this is something which has to be highlighted, in Asian studies in the University of Oporto. She published the famous publication Thinking Colors, Perception, Translation, and Representation, which I didn't read yet, but I have to do it soon. Her paper is called Intangible or Tangible Archaeology of Colors, Permanent Marks on Anthropomorphic Haniwa and Tattooing in Kofun Period Japan. I must confess, I'm a classical, as you call it, archaeologist, but happily enough, I was in Japan last year for the first time. So I did learn what Haniwa are, but as far as I understand, you will explain this in a more deeper sense in the Kofun period, which is, as far as I understood, what would be equivalent to the late antique period in Europe. So, Elisabetta, the floor, the screen is yours.
Thank you so much. I will just share my PowerPoint, and I hope, no, it doesn't work, sorry. It's not this one. It's this one, okay. So now is the correct one, I believe. Let's just put it into the presentation mode. Should be here. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. So good afternoon. First of all, of course, I'd like to thank the scientific committee for having accepted my contribution upon the title Intangible Archaeology of Colours, Permanent Marks on Anthropomorphic Haniwa and Tattooing in Kofun Period Japan. Before I start, if I may, I would like to make a very short and premise. I am a sinologist and art historian, and my interest on Haniwa has started when Lisbon University invited me to join the Archaeo project in 2019. I said yes, but at that time I grasped also the opportunity to deepen my knowledge on mound and tomb cultures in Japan, and I have decided to develop a research on anthropomorphic Haniwa. And what I will present today is just a teeny part of my PhD thesis that I hope I will deliver by the end of this year. Last but not least, I'm grateful to Gina Barnes, who has provided me with a preliminary bibliography on this topic, and she wrote a lot on Kofun period Japan and on the mound tomb material culture. Of course, I cannot avoid to mention my PhD supervisors, the archaeologist Mariana Diniz, Lucia Dolce from SOAS, and Matsugi Takehiko from Rekihaku. The Japanese clay artifacts known as Haniwa, which literally means in Japanese language circle of clay or ring of clay, developed in diverse geometrical, especially cylinders, zoomorphic, anthropomorphic forms, and they present also polychromic vestige. Haniwa were placed outside the Kofun, as you can see, on the top of the mound tomb, which were broken into terraces. The fact of being located outside the tumuli is still object of speculation nowadays. For those who are not familiar with Kofun, this is a picture that I took last year when I went to Japan again. This is a picture of a famous Kofun in mound tomb in Gunma Prefecture. That was discovered around the 19th century, together with two others, big Kofun. And it is particularly interesting, this this Kofun, because the mise-en-scène and distribution of the Haniwa has started to become more clear, especially thanks to the pioneering topographic survey provided by Fukushima Takeo at the beginning of the 20th century that he developed especially on this site. According to Goto Suichi, these anthropomorphic Haniwa were placed there, you see the arrow, to evoke the dead. And they both had the function of representing the funerary procession and to serve the dead in afterlife. Goto Suichi suggested that they were probably, this ceremony were similar to other ceremonies that took place in sanctuaries, affirming that most probably the funerary rituals were associated to other festive practices, matsuri. Other archaeologists, such as, for instance, Oba Iwao, has suggested that these haniwa were produced to attend the mogari, that is the temporary burial or terminal exposure of the corpse, the dead body, which was widely spread not only in Japan, but all over the world since the Neolithic age. And this is the sarcophagus of the king, of the chieftain of the clan. The distribution of haniwa, this is where the blue arrow was pointing at. The distribution of a haniwa, again in the same site of Gunma Prefecture, is very important here. And according to Koji Mitsuguchi, the emergence of anthropomorphic haniwa date back to the first half of the Middle Kofun period, around the 6th century of our era. And they depicted people from different social backgrounds involved in diverse activities. The placement of human haniwa increased during the late Kofun period, the 7th century of the Christian era, and the assemblage of these anthropomorphic artifacts, mainly those depicting warriors, ritual practitioners such as shamans, suggest that they were not mere part of the funerary rituals, but as Katsuhisa Takahashi proposed, they could reproduce individuals directly involved in the collective performance of burial, mourning, but also of passage of power from the deceased chief to the new ruler. Although it is very difficult to trace the origins of haniwa, the appearance of sculptured human figure in various degrees of stylization can be traced back to the Jomon period. As Esaka Teruya studies point out, Jomon period dogu, which literally means clay or terracotta figurines or dolls, were mainly anthropomorphic and mostly female figurines. This jar that you can see here in this slide, dating from the late Jomon period, was found in Hirosaki city in Aomori. And it bears, as you can see, human figures sculptured in relief on either sides of the shoulder of the vase. On the other side, you can see the head of a dogu of the same period, which was found on Yoyama Shell Mound in Chiba. It is very interesting to note the red pigment on the face, but we are going back to talk about this later. Another important example that would help us to trace the origins of haniwa, which of course were also influenced by continental tradition, is this clay tablet found in the Kanto region in the surrounding of Tokyo, which depicts human figures with a part that clearly remind us the characteristic of a dugu, such as big marked eyes, big lips, and a breast. Finally, this jar-shaped vessel with human face of a later period, so this jar does not belong to the Jomon period, but a later period, the Yayoi period, follows again the figurative tradition of dogu. Many dogu figurines actually represented women, but the depiction of breasts disappeared with a transition to the Yayoi period. Female-shaped dogu figurines were used in the ritual to pray for safe birth, fertility, and good harvest. Though these jar-shaped vessels bears a sculptural resemblance with dogu, but actually had a different function. In fact, many of these jars were excavated from reburial tombs, so it is thought that they were eventually used as container for bones. And these faces that you can see on these jars, they eventually represented the spirits of the ancestor. It is common to find these jars buried together in the same tomb, probably to reinforce a sense of clan unity and belonging. The tradition of gathering around graves to pay respect to ancestors is still common today in Japan. And again, when we look at this very carefully to this jar, almost a 70 centimeter tall, one can observe that the large body of this vessel is shaped like a human figure, of course, and the clay has used around the jar's opening to depict a three-dimensional human face, complete with eyebrows, nose, mouth, chin, and ears. A pattern that again resembles the dogu's figurines, but also remind us the tattoo that was put around the eyes and around the mouth. These objects presented in a chronological order have different functions. However, they have in common the body marking by tattooing or painting as a specific form of body decoration, a kind of a decoration that nowadays you can still find among Ainu people, an ethnic group of related indigenous people native of the northern part of Japan. In East Asian cultures, tattoo could signify both identity and alienation. In ancient China, red body paintings and tattoo drawings were discovered on pottery, bone, and jade objects, suggesting that tattoo was not only meant to mark criminals, but had been somehow connected to the specific religious practices since ancient times, and at least till the canonization of Confucius, of course. Although it is not clear whether the practice of tattooing entered the Japanese archipelago directly from the continent or not, throughout the country's history, different kanji, Chinese character that you can find here in this text, have been used to refer to tattoos. And these two sources actually are very interesting, especially the wager, because they mention here this country where people are used to tattoo themselves. And more specifically in the second one, in this one, you find a specific reference of a country of tattooed people that lies almost 7,000 li north from this Wajin, which is the country of probably the Japanese people. Of course, the practice of tattooing is also mentioned in earliest Japanese sources, such as the Kojiki and the Nihon Shoki, and details on this topic can be found in the paper that I will deliver at the end of this month. Japanese tattoo followed different patterns, and particularly important for our research is the eventual connection with the chokomon, or straight and curved line pattern, that according to Gina Barnes is symbolic motifs operating in early state society, and both seem to have played a critical role in elite's worldview, revolving around death, dying, and also killing. There are now several, of course, contrasting sometimes theories concerning its derivation, the derivation of this pattern, the Chocoman pattern, the structure and the meaning of this pattern. But at the end, the design is thought to transcend, of course, the merely decorative, and it is important as a research with which to investigate the construction of elite symbolism and politics during the period of state formation Japan. And in this specific haniwa that was found in that kofun I showed you earlier, this haniwa probably depicts a woman who eventually was a miko, a shaman, who is raising a cup that was excavated in the same prefecture. There is this Chokomon pattern all around the body. Besides, she has these red cheeks that Kidder has described in a very interesting way, saying that these pigments of scarlet colors, and I'm quoting directly Kidder, they are similar to the Chinese people that use rice powder on their cheeks, unquote. Okay, so this is the museum of the Guma prefecture, a very important one for all those that want to study the haniwa, although you don't find much about the pigments and not only red pigments that you can find on this haniwa. So going back to this haniwa, there is a very interesting study by Shiga Satoshi, who published his research on the red pigments that you can find in haniwa, as you can see in this example. And he came to the conclusion that these pigments were considered ritual related, and this is something that you can also find within the sarcophagus, outside the sarcophagus, because it seems that and it is quite clear in China, this, but not really in Japan, that red color has a function as protection to the dead and for the death and for the livings too. Methodologically, Shiga Satoshi observed the material using stereo microscopy, biological microscopy, and electron microscopy, besides other scientific analyses that were carried out for each particle using X-ray fluorescence analysis and X-ray diffraction and Raman spectroscopy, according to which Shiga Satoshi organized the red pigments and classified them according morphology and composition. Okay, so although cannot be said that the archaeometric survey was exhaustive, even not uniform, however, it was possible to identify some trends. And Shiga Satoshi concluded that most of the red pigment that were found on haniwa were the so-called Bengara. So this result is important, however, raises many questions, because especially when we think about Bengara and the etymological origin of Bengara, we think that, or better, we connect it to a kind of red iron oxide that was brought to Japan from the Indian province of Bengal, which was not the case, of course. Because this happened according to the records in the 16th century, and we are around the 7th century of our our area. So to conclude, very briefly, I think that there are many questions that need to be replied. And I just remind you that this is just a preliminary result of ongoing research. And of course, more data are needed. A lot I have learned this morning listening to your presentation, especially those on red pigments, red colors. And yes, thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Elisabetta. This is very, very interesting. I feel very pity that I have to leave now. Shame on me, but this is just because I was too stupid to understand the time difference between Germany and Portugal. But before leaving, I would very much like to present Atefe Chekofte. Hello. Very good to have you here on the screen. You are doing archaeometry of architectural heritage. You are now a research fellow at the Department of Scientific Research at the Metropolitan Museum in New York. Quite glad about this coincidence, because preparing our Chrome exhibition together with the Metropolitan staff, this was a very nice and kind possibility to cooperate. And we did cooperate, as I see that you did cooperate with Federico as well, which we owe so many important results, and Marco Leono as well. You did, and you are doing research on the characterization of gypsum artworks from Iran. You do archaeometric investigations at Pasargadae, and you recently started to study, and I think this is together with Alexander Nagel, the polychromy of Persian objects in the US collections. I have the pleasure to present as well an old friend, Alexander Nagel. He is professor of art history at the University of New York at the Fashion Institute of Technology. He is as well research associate at the Smithsonian Institution's National Museum of Natural History. He did a lot of exhibitions on Iran, Iraq, Greece, Egypt, Yemen, and lately published something which is very important, his book entitled Color and Meaning in the Art of Achaemenid Persia. Thank you so much. The screen is yours.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Hello, everybody. Good afternoon.
Yes.
And good morning in the US. First of all, I would love to ask my colleague, Dr. Alexander Nagel, to introduce the World Heritage sites and introduce his papers, who brought this great idea to us to investigate indirect on the polychromy surfaces of Pasargadae and Persepolis. Alex, would you?
Yes, thank you so very much, everyone. And Atefe, maybe you can continue with the next slide.
Yeah.
So our presentation for the next about 15 to 20 minutes focuses on, we go back to Iran, which we already heard about from Alessandro a little bit earlier today. So we're going to talk about two UNESCO World Heritage Sites in Iran, Pasargadae and Persepolis. You see some images here of those monuments that are still surviving on the site. The ruins that are still standing, mostly out of limestone. So it's limestone that we find as construction material. And all of these facades that we have today in gray and in black and in white were originally covered with abundant paints. The next slide shows actually the person who was involved in and was our grandfather in some ways for this study on Persepolis paper squeezes. So we see here Ernst Herzfeld, who was a German from Berlin, who went in the early 20th century to the sites of Pasargad and Persepolis, began also excavations in 1928 on the site of Pasargad. And on the right, you can see a photograph and a close-up of one of those squeezes that he made out of paper that gained us a mirror image or a negative image of what we see on the stone facades. The next slide, Atife, if you can forward, shows us also a photograph from the archives where we have a stone wall, a limestone wall on the site of Persepolis that has an inscription written on these walls. And so you see here a team that is taking paper squeezes from these inscriptions. And on the next slide, we have a little bit of a German TV show from the early 20th century that had reconstructed this this process, and we have letters from Herzfeld and his team that explain what they actually did on the site. So here in 1923, in Persepolis, he writes, "The entire day, Javad and Jumil made molds of the great terrace inscription. I read them in the tent in the evening." And in this other quote here from about 10 years later, in 1933, one of the assistants of Ernst Herzfeld mentions that we had made casts. One takes large sheets of thin cigarette paper that was carefully hammered on with the hard brush while amped. When it was well molded to the form, new layers were progressively overlaid, and once it was dry, one could lift off the paper layer, which was now firmly stuck together, and one had an exact reproduction of the original. So this is the process, and you see here how these paper squeezes then were later in the offices in universities also being studied and read. So mostly the inscriptions. And about 10 years ago or 15 years ago, I started looking closer at these paper squeezes, here the ones in the Smithsonian Institution. And I was able, with colleagues in the Smithsonian Institution, to identify traces of paint on these surfaces, which were from the original inscriptions. In this case here, we analyzed the paper, the little fragments that we had with different methodologies, and we found Egyptian blue, so a copper-based ancient composition that was initially on these inscriptions. The next slide shows us the 4 paper squeezes we were recently allowed in the Metropolitan Museum of Art with Ati, Omid, and Federico to study. So just to give you a brief overview about these 4 paper squeezes, we have one from Pasargad, which is a limestone ear that was excavated in 1928. We have a rosette and an Akinakis, which is a metal sword that was also carved in stone on facades at Persepolis. And we have a block with an inscription from one of the buildings at Persepolis. This inscription was likely added during a later period on the site. The next slide shows you all of these 4 squeezes that we were able to analyze. And the next slide is just to give you an idea where from Pasargad this ear that we have looked at closer is coming from a site called Palace P. There were several buildings all over the site of Pasargad, and the next slide shows you a little more of a close-up. Palace P was made out of different limestones quarried in the areas in Fars, and so several of these limestones were reconstructed. And you see on the lower, you can stick with the next one actually, Ati. On the lower left, you see on the lower right, you see an image where Herzfeld mentions this limestone ear was excavated. If on the next slide, you see a close-up of door jambs that were initially leading into the building, into Palace P, and you had stone reliefs on these, and only the lower parts are preserved. Herzfeld mentions in the next slide in one of his notebooks that he excavated an ear in the east gate, deep in the foundations, and on the right side you see he mentions that he did an abklatsch, which means squeeze, a paper squeeze. And so this is what basically we were able to study. The next slide shows you a close-up of Persepolis, where you see the buildings. Persepolis is about 2 hours away from Pasargad. So if you take the car, so here you see many of the buildings still standing off the side. And on the next slide, we have the second paper squeeze, which was from one of these flower ornaments that we see on many of these stone facades and on the animal capitals, which were originally holding columns and roofs on the side of Persepolis. The next slide shows you one excavation. Oh no, actually, yeah, sorry. So this shows the metal instrument that the Akinakis from one of the buildings that we have also analyzed. And the next slide shows a image of the Takara, which is one of the buildings at Persepolis. And the next slide has altogether the Hebrew inscription that Herzfeld and later colleagues identified on the site from later periods. And so a paper squeeze was made from this one too. And I'm now heading over to Atife, and thank you again, Ati, Omid, and Federico for doing this analysis.
Thank you, Alex. So in order to identify probable pigments, a multi-analytical methods were used to identify pigments such as multi-band image for imaging and Raman spectroscopy, polarized microscopy, and SCM EDS to analyze the chemical composition. Multi-band imaging. In multi-band imaging, first no trace of pigment was identified through IR and UVR images, in which show either there was no pigment or the pigment was too small to be detected by this method. In contrast, VIL images of the paper squeezes indicated some fluorescence particle, like here, number 1, number 2, and number 4, that you can see there are tiny fluorescence particles that could be related to pigments, especially Egyptian blue. And also we found some traces of contamination in ear and in rosette paper squeeze. In microscopy, in the microscopy of the rosette paper from Persepolis, mainly red grains, more than 10 tiny red grains were found within the texture, and 3 traces of blue also were found. The red color has 2 varieties, that the majority of the red grains of those were identified as hematite and goethite. And also, oh, I'm sorry, I mixed a little bit, sorry. The microscopy, of the red, as you can see, of the red showed hematite and goethite, and the Raman spectroscopy showed blue as lazurite here in the ear paper. And then in the Lutus paper, the microscopy, in the rosette actually paper, the microscopy showed mainly red grain within the paper texture and 3 traces of blue. That the red color has 2 varieties, as you can see here, that these bright pink red, we just found 1 particle, but there was too many red particles similar to this one in the paper, that the majority of them were identified as hematite and goethite. These red pink grain Raman shift revealed a modern red ink, which made the question at the beginning for us. The two blue were easily identified as lazurite regarding the Raman spectrum, as you can see here. I think there is a problem with a slide showing here. Sorry. Okay. It is interesting to mention that the paper squeeze from Ebru inscription block was full of microscopic blue grains, like the one that you can see here. They are less than 100 micrometers. But is there any problem? Red Raman shift, can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Oh, sorry. Raman shift of blue pigments indicated clearly lazurite, and also the Raman shift of the red identified hematite here. Sorry. Okay. Microscopy of the Echinacus squeeze paper showed 3 red grains in which the Raman shift in here in 218s and 310 can be related to hematite, and in 252 and 343 can related to cinnabar, and also in 380 we have goethite. So we have 3 mixed red at the Raman shift of the Echinacus squeeze paper, and Raman shift of black grain did not match with the previously determined Achaemenid black pigment. I mean, carbon black was well known at that period, but regarding the Raman shift, it could be referred to the black earth material. The Raman shift of blue particle here is a kind of critical Raman shift that haven't shown us a clear spectrum blue pigment, and it has a wave number at 240 that might be present azurite, but considering the strong Raman shift of azurite is at 403. So therefore, it wasn't identified by Raman spectroscopy accurately. In fact, it was difficult to focus on this pigment, as you can see here, because it was at the curved shape of the paper that causing some angles with the microscope. Due to that, we decided to take pigments from the papers and characterize them with SEM EDS. The EDS of 0.1 from here showed us the blue grain, showed us some elements such as silicon, sulfur, calcium, sodium as major elements, and chloride, potassium, magnesium, titanium as minor constituents, as well as aluminum, iron, and zinc that can be attributed to lazurite. And analysis of these blue particles here, 0.2 from this ear paper, identified sodium, calcium, phosphor, sulfur, chloride, silicium, and also the interesting point was copper that we found as a minor component in these blue particle. That can represent lazurite composition. We thought that the presence of the 1.34% of Cu of copper in this constituent could be related to contamination, or also could be related to the source of the lazurite pigment. Anyway, EDS analysis of red grain here, 0.3, identified iron as a major element besides some earthen components such as silicon, aluminum, calcium, that it is possible to be found beside hematite and goethite. SEM EDS of the rosette red grains showed us iron as a main component, as a main component that silicium, aluminum, and magnesium were also identified, that it is normal in hematite and goethite. And there was several tiny blue close to the red pigment that EDS analysis of them relieve silicon, aluminum, and major elements as a major elements, and magnesium, iron, calcium, potassium, and sulfur as minor elements that can be related to lazurite as well. And regarding the Echinacus blue grain, EDS analysis identified again silicon, aluminum, calcium as a major element, and sulfur, sodium, magnesium, iron, potassium, and especially copper as a minor constituent. So respectively, I mean, actually that might represent lazurite component, except the copper, because the copper amount was 2.45%, that it is more than the trace elements were found in the lapis lazuli stones from Persepolis in previous studies, of which it is better not to suppose them as a contamination due to its percentage and continuously presence. So the analysis of 0.7 here close to the paper fiber, showed silicon, sulfur, potassium, sodium, aluminum, calcium, and also again copper that can show us lazurite, that actually that might represent lazurite, because we don't have a specific grain that show us which is lazurite, but we know it was a blue pigment and we analyzed blue pigment, so it can represent lazurite. The SEM analysis of the inscription 0.8, the blue pigment, indicate again silicium, aluminum, iron, and calcium as major elements, and magnesium, potassium, sodium as minor elements, respectively, as well as some trace elements such as phosphate, colorate, and again copper. The components represent lazurite, except I think the copper, because the amount of copper was more than trace elements. So EDS of point, the red color, red pigment, identified iron, silicon, aluminum as major element that can represent hematite, and also some minor elements such as magnesium, potassium, sulfur, calcium, titanium, and sodium were also identified that can show us it was a little contaminated with the blue particle, as you can see here in the microscopic picture, that blue particle are close to the red particle. Finally, the analysis of the number 0.10 from the black particle mainly identified iron and some trace elements of silicon, calcium, that it is normal in this case, and according to the EDS result and its color, it is magnetite black. So we found red, black, and blue pigments in all paper squeezes, while the ear and the inscription paper squeezes includes wide spread and abundant tiny blue pigment particles. The Echinacus Raman spectra showed 3 different red goethite, hematite, and cinnabar, while the others just showed us goethite and hematite. So the Echinacus opened a question about stratigraphy of the polychromy surfaces of the facades of Apadana. And also, it opened a question about the possibility whether the hematite was produced by heating goethite that can explain the Achaemenid pigment manufacturing or not. But it is important, it is important to know that it needs more investigation in the case of any presence of color on the surface of Apadana Palace. A different black magnetite were identified in despite of the well-known carbon black of the Achaemenid pigment, which is important and interesting. And Raman spectroscopy analysis from the blue particle identified lazurite, and the ACM showed a complex constituents that might be consistent with the lazurite found in Raman spectra. Regarding copper in the composition of the blue pigment could be either a contamination or attributing to some copper bearing additions such as Egyptian blue or azurite. Also, it is possible be either a mixture of 2 or 3 blue in one layer or layers of blue on the others, actually paint layers. Based on the VIL images, presence of Egyptian blue is possible, as I showed you before, so that the copper might be related to Egyptian blue. However, it is important to take into account that the pigment samples were too small to conclude now and to carry out more studies at this moment. And it should bear in mind that analytical results could not support any hypothesis at this moment about the layers or mixtures or Egyptian blue. So at the end, these findings prove that indirect scientific investigation into the traditional method of documentation used by early generation of archaeologists will lead to discover new information about the ancient polychromy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for all the presenters. So now, questions?
May I stop my presentation right now, or do I need to keep it?
You can stop.
Perfect.
Yes. Okay, there is one question. Annie, can you turn on?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, thank you so much for that. I have a question regarding the last presentation. I work a lot with squeezes as well, and I'm curious whether you know anything about the process by which the squeezes were made. Do you know if they cleaned the surface, whether they may have treated them with chemicals before they made the squeezes?
Thank you so very much, Annie, for this question. I can take that maybe. So it's great to meet you because I know of your work on paper squeezes. So yeah, so as far as I know, there were any mention about cleaning the surface before they took these paper squeezes. What I imagine though is that they were, I mean, at least with a brush or something, because knowing the Germans, I know that they probably were also a little bit, so Ernst Herzfeld, aware of things on the surface. So I would assume nothing wet or something, no other material, liquids, but just a brush that they used before. So otherwise, I'm not aware of anywhere a statement where they would have cleaned the surfaces before they took the paper squeeze. Thank you for the question, Annie.
Okay. Any other questions? So I know that in the chat there was a conversation with Alessandro Di Ludovico. Can you please answer the comment. It was more a comment than a... Alessandro?
Yes, sorry, I was talking. Here I am. Yes. Hi. Yes.
Clarify the comment.
The comments?
The comment that was in the chat.
Yes, I replied in the chat. I answered in the chat. Written. The comment was by Margaret Root. Yeah, she asked. She commented about the provenance of the cylinder seals and possible, let's say, biases brought by the fact that many cylinder seals come from the market of antiquities. And so this could have given a privilege for the purchase preeminence of certain types of stones because of they look more appealing for purchaser. And so my reply is just that yes, she's right. It is really so. The fact is that on one hand, we cannot control exactly what we can include in our data set because, as I said, we use images that were captured with a certain technique by a research team we are not part of. And it's quite an expensive project and also from the bureaucratic point of view, quite complex. So what we can do is just to enlarge as much as possible our data set using the images that have been captured up to now, because there are more. And on the other hand, to introduce more statistical processings in order to verify how much representative the data we have are for each historical period.
Okay, thank you. Alexander, do you have a question?
Yes, I had a question for Elisabetta. First, also, I love this presentation, so thank you very much for sharing your work. So is this kind of, do you think now at this point, Elisabetta, that this is kind of a ritual also, this painting of these faces also, that was part of the death ceremonies, that they would repeat it these also? Can you explain a little bit more about the rituals that you brought up briefly? But I'm curious to learn more about what you think about this. I know we cannot probably have a full answer, but even speculating, I think, is just a good point.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your question, Alexander. I enjoy your communication too, as well as the one by Alessandro. Yes, of course, my reply is out of speculation because we are talking about a culture that if it lets something written, it happened when it disappeared almost. And we have a lot of records from the Chinese sources, but as we know, the Chinese perceived themselves at the center of the world, and all the countries around were barbarians. So although their information is very important, still is throughout the lenses of somebody that is a civilized country dominating the world or thinking of dominating the world. So it is my understanding that actually when we look at and we study the red pigment, we have to divide it into two parts. One is the pigments that you find on Haniwa, especially anthropomorphic Haniwa. And the other pigments are the pigments that you can find under the sarcophagus or inside the sarcophagus that are mostly what we call a cinnabar, done in Chinese language. Sorry, I don't know the technical words, and I'm really sorry for that, but I come from another study, so I'm not so technical as you are. Anyway, so cinnabar was used in many by many cultures, started from China, in alchemy, in Taoism, and also in rituals that connected the cosmos. There was this belief that the man was a microcosm, and this is from the Chinese perspective, and was living should live in harmony with the macrocosm. So there is this connection with the cosmos. On the other side, we have the red pigments on the face, on the body of Haniwa in Japan. Traces of red pigments were found also in China, but on terracotta warriors, for instance, that are very similar with Haniwa, although they are put inside and not outside the tombs. But I believe that the meaning here is completely different, in the sense that the red pigment that we find in the Chinese terracotta figurines is a pure and mere aesthetic, has a pure and mere aesthetic values. I'm talking only about the figurines, while in Japan not. I think it is a kind of protection. And here's my speculation, starting looking into the Ainu population, where these kind of tattoos is a sort of amulet, something that is used to protect the body from evil. And especially when it is red, again, out of speculation, I believe it is even stronger. So I think that we can think about this kind of tattoo and also scarification, because I hadn't time to talk about scarification, but scarification was also a practice that was quite common at that time. Beside this, there is a Japanese researcher and archaeologist that also suggested, and Gina Barnes agreed with him, that actually this kind of tattoos were also used and meant to, let's say, distinguish the people in a society that was organized in a hierarchical way. So many answers. And again, out of a speculation. So thank you so much, Alexander. I don't know if I gave some food for thoughts, but anyway.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for your
session.
Interesting answer. We need to talk more.
Yes.
I would like to make a question to the last presentation. Can you, through the squeezed papers, can you understand the different areas of the colors? Like one area is blue, the other one. Could you understand how the color was distributed on the piece, the real piece, or is everything mixed because of the squeezing method?
Yeah, Alex, I want to first explain a little under microscope, then I think it's better you talk about this. First, I want to say that under microscope, it's not easy to say that in one area we have blue and in another area we have red or black. No, it is not possible because, for example, in two papers, the inscriptions and the ears, it was actually widespread tiny particle of blue, but within the blue we found black and also red. Just the difference was that the red and black was less than blue particles. The only thing that we could find under the microscope was that. But regarding the understanding about the colors, I think Alice could explain you more, because he already has done too many things on colors. So Alex, would you?
Yeah, sure. So what I noticed actually in Pasargad with the ear, for example, that Atife had introduced, where there are also different types of chemical elements being found. We have already in Pasargad cases where we have black layers under a blue layer, where it shows even that there was kind of a to make one color obviously darker or give it a different appearance. So this is on plaster. We have also from the same Palace P, we found also plaster fragments with paint of flower motifs on them. So we know that they're always close by each other, these different types of pigments. And on the squeezes, I think we took almost 30 measurements also of each of these paper squeezes, first to find out areas also where we have higher concentration. But the blue and the red is always an issue everywhere throughout the facades. We have them so close together under the microscope also. It's we have no answer, I think, at this point, to make it short. So that's my quick answer to that. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Jan, do you want to? You need to turn on your sound.
There we go. Thank you. Thank you for this, Alexander, and to Ati. This is a question that has to do with what is becoming increasingly clear, namely that the amount of pigment necessary to carry out the kind of work that your contribution focuses on, but also on vast other surfaces in the Achaemenid Empire, in the architecture and on the sculpture, is making it increasingly clear that we have to that we begin to realize the volume involved of pigments. I mean, the volume of or the logistics of the pigment production, pigments of a certain quality, and I mean, it's just it's becoming, to me at least, more and more apparent that we're dealing with a really not an industry, obviously, but anyway, on a scale that your contribution, Alexander, and thank you very much, has contributed so conspicuously to, that we have to begin asking ourselves what were the sources and what was the chaîne opératoire, so to speak, to be able to bring this about. And it's I mean, it's becoming apparent on the Acropolis of Athens, because we have a Doric order, and boom, boom, boom. If you have A and B, then you can go whoop, Azurite for the rest, and so on. And as far what I know, little I know of Achaemenid epigraphy and architecture and sculpture, is that you can work more or less in the same way. So my question is, what thoughts are you having about the logistics of provenancing and producing these very large amounts of pigments?
Ati, should I go? Okay. Jan, thank you so very much. It's great to see you again. Thank you for this question. So for those of you, many of you have never been to Persepolis or Pasargad, but we found bowls with pigments also. So right very close to the facade. So that indicates also that maintenance, it was either maintenance of painting, continuously painting these facades, or other meanings that these bowls with pigments had. So the paint production happened on the site close to the stone carvers, to the other industry. I would say industry. There was a big group of hundreds, thousands of people who were involved in building these palaces and putting also the mines that we have near Pasargad and Persepolis. There are copper mines also in Fars that we know have been exploited for many centuries. There's currently a project also from Germany where people study the mines in Iran more closely, so that we know malachite also and copper, and all of these were readily available also for those people. We know that many Egyptians were brought from, when the Persian Empire started in the late 6th century, they had this vast area from North Africa to India to what is modern Pakistan and Central Asia. So we know that people from all of these parts of the world were also brought to Fars, to Pasargad and Persepolis to shape these cultures. It also happened in later cultures in the Timurid area, also that people who came from Mongolia then also brought thousands of people sometimes with them for camps that would be around these sites in Iran. There's one famous site called Takht-i-Sulaiman, where we know that the workers were only for the making of these buildings and palaces there on the ground, and then in tents and in other not permanent structures. So that's what I think also happened on these sites, that these production brought many people together. The sources, we still have not identified all the sources where they are coming from, but lapis, like Ati also mentioned, obviously is only available in the eastern parts of what is modern Iran, Afghanistan. The location of these sources, of these resources, I agree that this is really something we need to focus on more also, because the blues that we find in the Mediterranean also, I mean, they might have been brought from far away sources. I think that's a role also where Asia Minor, modern Turkey, also really is central to our understanding, because the Persians had satrapies, provinces also there that connected, like the mausoleum of Halikarnassos in the 4th century BCE, where we know that evidence of paint is so abundant all over this building, and blues in particular might have also in this case communicated between the East and the West in this case. Thank you, Jan.
Yeah.
Also, I want to just add one tip that recently, through the investigation that Omid and we have done on the lapis lazuli stones from Persepolis, mainly they brought from Afghanistan. So it shows based on the provenance study, it shows that it is quite possible that the other colors, pigments brought from different areas. Thank you for interesting question.
Thank you very much for all the presentations and questions. Now we will have a break, but first I would like to say that the last presentation won't be happening because the presenter just told us that she cannot be here. So it's Julia de Palma. So we will finish earlier. Okay, so see you at 4 Lisbon time. Don't forget. Thank you, bye.
Thank you.
Hello, Manuel.
Hello.
How are you?
I am okay. And you?
Great. A bit nervous because we don't have the 2 presenters. I don't see here Marco Brunetti.
Okay, I am waiting. Don't worry about that, because I think that we have 5 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Marco Brunetti, and the second one is De Palma or something like that. No, Julia
Yes.
Maria Palma.
Exactly, but she just
Both are Italian, no? But working out of Italy, no? Julia
yes,
Maria
yes,
Palma.
Brunetti definitely, and Julia Palma. I don't know. I don't
Pierre
have.
Lyon dos.
Yes.
Lyon, sí.
Isabel,
Yes.
may I interrupt for a moment?
Of course you can.
But this is just to say that just to congratulate you on the whole concept of your project and of the way the meeting has gone today. And the colleague who is now on the screen, Manuel Cacineras.
Hello.
Hello.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, in this indirect way. No, but I just wanted to take the opportunity, Isabel, to thank you.
Thank you to the moderators, because you are being marvelous.
No, but it's but I think that you are doing a really good job, and so
yeah. The session is 20 minutes, and the last 20 minutes are for discussion.
Exactly.
Isabel, I shall leave you, but thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, and for that, what do you suggest me? Because people are going to up the hand or something like that. Yeah, usually is recorded in the screen, no?
Yes. So
okay.
Either they do questions by raising hands and we can see it, and they can do also questions in the chat.
Okay.
So if you want to,
see, no, I have everything here. Yeah, I have participants, chat. Okay. Yeah, participants, chat. Okay. Okay, I will check. I will check.
Okay. Any problem? We are here to try to.
No, the connection is very good. It's a pity for me because I am very busy these days. So
don't worry, because
I don't have enough time. Anyway, I realized that the session proceeded very well today, because I have been connecting,
in and out
in different moments, and I realized that many people were involved. Yeah.
We had 300 inscriptions. We were like, oh.
Yeah.
Anyway, don't worry, because the presentations are recorded. Everything will be recorded, and then some cuts will be done, because if an author doesn't want the presentation to be distributed, we will cut that presentation, but then we can send people the whole symposium. Okay, let's see if we have.
Sometimes it's a little bit difficult to understand the time in Lisbon. In fact, I have to check on internet.
It's that's what I do always, because I'm always doing mixing the hours. So that's why we said Lisbon time, because then we have summertime, and then we change the hour, so it's a mess.
Yeah. Anyway, you sent a message very clear about that. Yeah,
that's
this was very important. This was very important. Yeah, because sometimes I am in meetings in Greece, and for me it's very difficult, but because it's not late, it's in advance.
Of course, exactly.
Yeah.
So let's see. Okay, I don't see Marco Brunetti here.
Maybe you can send him like a message, because probably it's something like that he.
We already did. Sarah, you did send. She sent an email. Yes, it's an email.
Yes,
We don't have another.
That is the best option.
That's the problem with these online meetings.
Yeah,
You don't see them, so you cannot. And we also sent an email to Julia Di Maria Palma, because she wanted to send her her presentation tomorrow. And it's today. It's not tomorrow. So. I'm really sorry, Manuel, for this.
No. We have time. Because if the other speaker is connected right now, no. Let me see participants. Because maybe
see
can
him
propose.
Here, because I was hoping that he was connected with another name that I would
Julia
not
Maria Palma. Julia Maria Palma. Julia Alcantara, no, it's not connected.
No, Julia Maria Palma said that she and her colleagues had an appointment at work today, so they couldn't do the presentation at the scheduled time. So probably none of them will be here, I assume.
So she's not joining us finally?
No.
Right. And about Brunetti, we know anything about Brunetti?
No, I sent him an email, but no answer until now.
Yeah.
We were hoping that Brunetti will show up.
Yeah, maybe we can.
Okay. So I am going to speak to everybody. So I am the chair of the last session of today about this conference about Archaeology of Colour. But unfortunately, we have some problems because it seems that Marco Brunetti is not connected, and we are trying to connect him, sending an email. The organizer are trying to connect him, and for the second speaker, it seems that she was not able to be today with us. No, so if you want, we can wait a little bit for Marco Brunetti, because I think that the topic is so interesting to follow today. It's a pity. So I ask you to wait 5 minutes, because maybe Brunetti confused the time. Maybe he's thinking of Roma time or Berlin time. Okay. So.
Yes, let's wait for 5 minutes.
See, we can wait 5 minutes and send some messages, because could be that he didn't realize of the time.
Yes, one of our colleagues, and is one of the colleagues from our symposium, she thought that she would present Friday, and she's the first
Yeah.
tomorrow
Yeah.
morning.
Yeah.
I used to love online meetings, but today I'm hating it. This is too confusing to because you cannot speak with the presenters. So
It's a pity because we have 67 people online
yes, it is.
streaming. So
Julia is saying that she thought
no reply from Marco Brunetti.
no, just
No.
Brunetti just answered now, and
Okay, so I'm so sorry to everyone, but it seems that Marco Brunetti had an important family problem and he won't be able to join us today. So we will need to end our session earlier, and we are very sorry that Manuel Castanheira will not be able to do the moderation of these panels. I thought it would,
Okay,
it would be
so
great, but
no problem. I am very sorry for the organizers, because I know that organize this meeting was a big effort, and I am very sorry by the audience that they are there waiting. So sorry, and okay. See you tomorrow in the next session in the morning. So if maybe you want to tell something about tomorrow morning, everything is clear about tomorrow morning?
I hope so.
Yeah, okay. So
tomorrow,
my recommendation is to remind everybody this afternoon or this evening with an email about the meeting of, if there is anyone not coming, please. Yeah.
Please tell us.
Okay. So good evening and see you tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Manuel.
Bye.
And we are very sorry. We will see you tomorrow at 9 Lisbon time.
Okay, Lisbon time. This is the most
Lisbon
important. Okay, bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
So see you
Bye-bye.
tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.